So one of the things with riding a Lambretta in the past, it was all about machismo. You needed to be a big strong man to do a proper clutch. When you ran a TS1 on 4-plate clutch, you needed to add more and more springs to stop it slipping. So we didn't just have your standard Lambretta 5 springs. We'd put 5 Vespa springs around it as well. And then if you're really tough, you'd put a centre spring underneath that as well. Obviously nowadays you just go and buy a Scamadi or a Royal Alloy if you can't do the clutch anymore. Or alternatively, you can fit an easier move clutch system. So I'm going to introduce this one, which is the cheapest and easiest to fit because it's external. This is Derek Dowling's Lambretta Clutch Assist. It's now on version 4. And what it consists of is 2 cables, a moddy looking card, a full set of instructions with some pictures, which is rather good. Don't normally get that, do you? 2 Allen keys, this pulley that goes on the clutch arm with this spacer. This has got a bearing in it, which is rather nice, and this cable stop which fits into the top of the motor. And we shall show you how it all goes together. Right, one of the first things I want to do is to measure how far the standard lever pulls in the clutch arm. Now this is going to be a proportional system, so whatever you pull there, the arm's going to move roughly the same, although that arm is on at a funny angle. At the moment, the distance between my little cable tie on the cable and the distance between the stop is 31.4. So I'll pull the lever in and then we'll measure again. So I make that 21.4, so 10 mil basically. We're getting 10 mil of travel at the clutch arm. Now when we swap to the other system, the Clutch Assist, we're going to halve that, which is why you get half the strength. But we need to know how many degrees this turns by, because obviously we're going to reduce that by adding the pulley. This isn't going to turn so far, so we've got to make sure that we've still got clutch slip and clutch fully engaged within the range of movement that's now halved. Right, so the first stage is to undo the original cable, which I should be able to unhook reasonably easily. Right, so obviously you need your oddball tools, standard innocenti stuff, 9mm spanner for holding that, and a 3.5mm Allen key for undoing the trunnion. Everything, obviously you can get trunnions with 3mm, but that's a standard type one. Right, okay, so next step is to take the headset top off and whip out the original cable. Okay, so it's lucky lottery if we're going to be able to get that another inner cable back in, we'll see. Right, the rule is if you can get a Lambretta cable in without having to take the headset top off, you're a winner. And this one went straight in, obviously being 1.2, it moves really lovely, which is, suit you, sir. Right, so the inner cable's coming through quite nicely, so let's just pop it out of there. See if we can, it's already there, look, there we go. That's great. Just got to feed that through. Suit you, sir. How often does that go? As easy as that, lovely. I think these are Mark Broadhurst cable outers. Quite nice. Right, there we go. So we've got all our slack on the inner cable now. Just going to put the lever back on. Right, one of the things that Derek says in the instructions is that the arm should be at 10 to 12 or 1150 he calls it when it engages, and at the moment mine's way further around than that. So the instruction is to undo the circlip, take off the arm, and I'll reposition it so that it's just before 12 o'clock. Lever that off. Oops, there we go. so I can remove the arm and the spring together. There we go. Put the spring back on. So we're going to reposition the arm so that it's just one more round, I think. About there, that'll be perfect. Right, but before I do that, I shall assemble the pulley onto the arm. One washer and the screw through the bearing, another washer underneath, big washer, then the clutch arm with the brass spacer, the other washer and the nut. There we go. Right, so that's all on, it's all on tight and the pulley wheel spins freely. So I'm assuming that's correct. One other thing to do is I take the scrub screw and little cable protector out of there, because I've got to fit this now to the casing. Right, so the next step is to remove this bolt, which we're going to replace with the little post that the cable returns to. So that's the cable return post. I'll screw that in. Now you've got to make sure that the direction of the cable is going to go towards the arm, so the hole's in the right position, and then we can lock this off with a 10mm spanner. Okay, right, that's that locked off. It's fine. We've now got a fixed post. The next part of the job is to put the cable back, the arm back, where he suggests, which was, that's the one, that one there, which was at 10 to 12. Well, that's, if they were saying that's 12 o'clock, then that's a little bit before. That's as good as you're going to get. Otherwise, I'm a spline too far around. So I shall just hook the spring over, and we'll put the circlip back on. Right, okay, so we now have our arm in the right position, and we can wrap the cable around it and feed it back through to the fixed post. So it's supposed to run thus, like that. And if we put our little brass thing inside, whoops, and there we go, the grub screws in. Now, he says to wind that right in. I didn't want to do that. I like to have adjustment both ways. So, as far as I'm concerned, that cable's pinched. And now we can feel what it feels like at the lever. Definitely halved the amount of effort it is to pull it. It's much easier. But equally, we've also reduced the amount of movement that it's got between the in and out. So we have to find out if there's enough range. We find out if there's enough range of movement here, enough degrees travelled to get both fully slipping when it's pulled in, and also fully engaged when it's released. At the moment, there's some slack on the cable, so it's definitely engaging. Whether we've got it tight enough to fully get it to slip. Obviously, with a 6 or 7 plate clutch, you need to put it in, the arm probably needs a little bit more travel to get all the plates to fully release. Right, so in theory, the distance that the arm moves is going to be halved, because that's how a pulley works. It's now moving half as far with half as much strain on it. I'm measuring 91 to the centre of the pulley, and when it's pulled in, 86. So it's 5 mil. So yes, it's halved it. So whether this is going to be enough is something we're going to have to find out in a second. So at the moment I've got a load of slack on there. I'm going to take some of that out, but rather than using the adjuster, the good thing with the grub screw is I can just undo this post and pull a little bit of that slack through, join it up again. I quite like that, that's handy. Still pulls in quite easy, much easier than it was before. And it's still quite slack on there as well, so I'm assuming that the clutch will be fully engaged when it's released. Right, we'll give it a go. So the proof of the pudding is whether you can depress the kickstart fully with the clutch pulled in. If you can, without turning the engine over, pulling the clutch in now, and so that's with the clutch pulled in. It does slip and it bites towards the end on the way out. So right, so what my reservation with this was whether I'd be able to get the correct clutch adjustment, whether the biting point, I could set the biting point properly. Now at the moment the biting point is quite far out, which means the cable's a bit too tense, so let's start it up. Put it in first gear and it starts to pull away towards the end. Now I want that to pull away a little bit earlier, so I'm going to just wind the adjuster into the block a little bit further, and hopefully I'll be able to set that somewhere in the middle. We'll give it a try now. Okay, so I've readjusted it now. I let the cable off a little bit, loosened it off a little bit. So what you want is this, basically, that you can get it into first gear, tick over, and get it back into neutral without it pulling away. Now I've got the biting point. It starts to pull away about halfway through, which is perfect, but I've still got a decent amount of slip when it's pulled in. So there's a little bit of drag there. Probably could tighten up a tiny bit, but that's all right. Okay, so I spoke to a couple of dealers to find out how successful they found this system, and I've been quite lucky that it's got enough range to cope. Now, whether this works depends really on your clutch system. So if you've got a clutch system that goes down nice and straight, you know, because the springs are balanced and it's fine. Some of the standard systems, so the original LI style with the spindle down the middle, always goes down straight, works really well. The GP system has got the big plunger that tends to keep it quite flat. That's not too bad either. The one that's awful is the SX type that's got the little nipple on the top, but no spindle, and that tends to go down crooked. That needs a lot of travel to get it to disengage properly. So if you've got any of the systems that take a lot of travel to disengage, this might not work because you're only getting half of the amount of degrees movement at this point than you were before when the cable went straight to the thing. However, there is a good solution. Let me find it. Here. So this is an easy solution that was suggested to me by Alan at Diablo Moto. So you can get a compromise by shortening the arm by cutting it and re-welding it. You can basically increase, so if I've only got 5 mil of movement now at that point, if you've got an arm that's this much shorter, 5mm there is a lot more degrees at this point than it is on that arm. So using a shorter arm will effectively give you, it will start to make it stiffer the shorter you make it, but it will also give you more degrees of movement. So I'm going to put this in my toolbox, but I won't use it at the moment. It's not exactly like piano wire. If you ever have that like piano wire, I'm sure that will burn your clutch out. So the thing with this is to make sure it's adjusted right. If it's not adjusted right, then you're probably going to have trouble with it. If it is adjusted right and you've got the right clutch system, it seems to work a treat. And if you've got a clutch system that needs more travel, then that's the simple answer. And again, it's still outside, so anybody with a welder can quickly make that. Just cut 10mm out, 15mm out, something like that. Make yourself a shorter lever and you might actually get even a better cable run out of the cable. But overall, I'm quite impressed.